Hey there, everybody. It's David, and we are doing a sunflower. I do have some sad news. I want to thank everybody for their condolences on Facebook for my dad. My dad passed away. What was it? Yesterday morning. It's been a long, a long day. Yesterday morning, my dad, after some pretty problems with his health, but he passed away yesterday morning, and so I'm going to dedicate this paint along to him. And um, and since he was a big wine drinker, he loved his wine. He loved it more than anything. So we're going to toast him with a glass of wine. And it's so hot in here right now. It's unbelievably hot. It's been hot here all week and stuff. But cheers, Dad. Cheers to you. And by the way, he loved the cheapest wine. He loved the cheapest wine, and he loved. It didn't matter, but it had to be red. It had to be red wine, and it could be the cheapest bottle of red wine. But he loved it. So we're gonna be doing the. So I already did this one this afternoon, and we did the sunflower. And as you saw in the opening, it was the one way, and then I turned another way, because you can do this one either up and down or horizontal. And so we're gonna try. I'll show you in a second what I had done upwards, and so I think we can do it even better. And I'm gonna do it up and down, vertically instead of horizontally. All right, so let's go first to our website. And so my website, and I noticed I did not. It's been a really tough week, and constantly going to the hospital, and then we had to go to hospice, and but so I didn't get a time. It was like the time to change my website. I totally forgot about that. So, but luckily I got my newsletter out there, and I hope you guys got this thing. And I will change it right after this. I will change it so you can find it, the picture and this thing, because I just realized I'm like, oh boy, I didn't change it, did I? So, anyways, that's on the website. It will be on the website. This thing. If you got my newsletter, it's in there. I'm sorry I don't have the actual painting here on the website right now. And then supplies, of course, is my supplies. And we're going to do the Holbein watercolors again. And I'm working on the paper, just a 300-pound paper. And so the value study, let's go to the value study. And so here we have the value study. And like I said, this is the way it is. This is the way it was. And so we're going to do it sideways, horizontal, but I'm going to change it. But the value pattern is still the same. It doesn't matter how you handle it, if you're up and down or left or right. So do it either way. And I think this way it's kind of like it's falling over the side, and that's kind of cool too. The stem is kind of going around, but you can make it going down, like I'll show you what I had done. But basically the flower is the flowers, like the couple of the flower blossoms are the light, and everything else is dark. So it's pretty simple. And pretty simple. And I picked it really quickly this week when I was doing my newsletter because, again, I was really, really busy, and so I just wanted to get it out there for you guys. And so the tabletop here, here's what I did this afternoon. And like I said, I did up and down. And then I realized I didn't have, it was just all blah and blank this afternoon. And so what I had done is I wanted to show them, because I didn't have my stencils with me, because sometimes I would, on a scene like this, I would put stencils down, and I would put like circles or writing or something. And so I decided just to take my flat brush and give it a little bit of like a pattern. And I did that pattern all the way down, but then I erased it down here because it didn't look so good. And so then I reversed it, but then I did it while it was wet, and it was just so it didn't turn out super great, the design, and I could probably bring it down a little bit, some of this green or something in there. But it was a good practice. And so this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing, probably keep up here, make the background a little bit more interesting, because I don't think the background was interesting enough when I was doing this afternoon. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit more interesting, maybe a little bit better colors. It just was like, eh. And so we're going to try to make it a little bit better colors. And so let's go. So I drew it up. And again, you could do it this way too. I mean, it really doesn't matter. This way, I think I wouldn't have put this in there in this direction. I would maybe do something, and then also show the vines coming down, because it'd be going up and over. And so you decide on which way you want it to be. I think, and I think most everybody did in class did it this way. It just made more sense and stuff. It looked a little bit better, but give it any way you want. And so see, I put, because you don't really see in the picture, you don't see the stem, but I kind of brought the stem out a little bit so that you could see the stem a little bit better. And did we go over the, oh yeah, I showed you the value study. And so do the value study and get that in there, so that the flowers are light and the other things are dark. And so since this is not a landscape, and because landscapes a lot of times are light backgrounds, and this is going to be more of a dark background, light foreground, because that's where the flowers are. More like a still life. Let me shift my camera over just slightly so I can don't have to lean over so far. And so we're gonna do the light of the petals first. And I don't do petal by petal. I do the whole thing in like a really bright yellow. And the one thing I was telling the class is that with yellow, it is the hardest thing, yellow, to darken and do a shadow to, because if you're using its complement, like a lot of times people do, is these are complements, it gets muddy and stuff. So just use a darker yellow by using, like, go into the orange and just still keep it very, very yellow. And so here we go. And thanks again for all the condolences, guys. We're really happy that it didn't take long, because he was in hospice only for 1 day, and we were really happy that it just felt like he was going to be hurting, and so it was actually a relief to hear. And we were praying that he would go fast when it was in hospice, my dad was one heck of a fun guy. I mean, he just loved to party and stuff, and so we're not going to be doing a funeral. We're going to be doing a thing for life. What do you call it? The thing for life. And so we're going to do it in November. We're going to do a really nice party for him and invite our friends and all his friends, because he had a lot of them. So we're going to wet this area. We're going to wet the light area. And so we're just going to put down water, and I'm just going to put down water with a little bit of pure yellow. I'm taking pure yellow because that with white will be very vibrant. One thing about yellow, it's very, very vibrant. I don't care what color of, is that for Hansa, I think. But see, I'm going over the lines too. I don't really care about making the petals yet. So I'm going over everything and just putting in all the nice yellow. I'm wetting it as I go along here. But then what I want to do is make it wet enough so that I can also give it a texture with a lot of pigment. And then all of a sudden let's see, hold on. Your chat went away. Okay, so there. See, now it's just plain and blah. And so to make it better, like a nice wet in the wet wash, I'm going to take some fun colors, like take some of the orange. And then just look where the darks are. That kind of comes right here. I'm just going to kind of bleed it upwards. And then just come in here. And I'm going to go up and just kind of like, work the edges and nice soft edges, and go in there. And I basically just took orange. I just took the yellow orange. You can take a darker orange a little bit later, but right now I'm going to keep it very, very high key with bright yellow, because these plants are very bright yellow. So I'm just going to go, this is just the darks, like the dark areas, and so I'm just going to go in there with a little bit of that. I can even go in with a little bit of like burnt sienna type thing, or quinacridone gold, but make sure you don't have any blue in your quinacridone gold so it stays nice and gold. Because that's it. See, I got green in there, so it's a little bit more of a gray, and I don't want to do that. I want to get the pure quinacridone gold, because that will give me a nice gold. And so that's a great color for when you're using quinacridone gold for the shadowing too. And use enough pigment so that it just sits there and does its thing and gives you a nice pattern of color and pigment, because it's nice having floating pigment, having a lot of pigment. Let it float. I'm just going to let it float, get granulated. That's kind of cool. Now these in front here, the bottom is a little bit darker and brighter, and so I got to make sure I don't talk so much and wet this. And this area is a little bit darker, and you notice I don't go each petal. I'm going all of them. And later on, maybe if this one's a little bit lighter right here, I can take this out a little bit. The color, I can just go like this. I can just put that little bit in like that if I think there needs to be one really bright. And actually use more pigment of yellow too a second time. Makes it a little bit darker. And depending on what yellow you have, if you have like lemon yellow, that's really, really bright. And so that's, you can put in, and each time you put another wash of yellow on top of a yellow, it's going to get just slightly darker too, because it's soaking in a paper, and it'll make it light with the white of the paper, and that'll just be another layer to cover the white, and that's going to become darker. So I don't know if you ever noticed that, but because it's soaking into the paper, your yellow, and if you want to just do another wash over it, it'll make it slightly darker, because it's not using the white, it's not showing the white of the paper anymore, so it's going to be darker. It's something you don't really think about. You're thinking like, oh, it's just going to be, it's going to be the same thing, but it isn't, because it's transparent. It's going to go into the paper and gives you a little bit lighter. This chat thing, they have the advertising above it. They should always not put it above the chat. All right, so there's my yellow up on top, and I'm going to make those couple parts a little bit darker. So there's a couple parts like right in here, a little bit darker. And I do this while it's wet, so you use a lot of thick pigment, and that way you can show the lights and darks, right? And you can show the edges. They're still soft, but then you can show the edges as being a little bit harder. I'm not going to put the lines like in the fine lines, but I can put some like these. And see how I'm going into everything. I'm going beyond, because you don't want to stop. You just want to keep on going with and then the darks will take care of that out there. And so I'm just getting these darks in here, and these are going to be a little bit more worked on over here. And so I just want to get that kind of middle tone in there. I don't have to get the exact color in there yet, but I do like this yellow right here, or this orange, or the bright orange right here. So see, it's like almost done. I mean, this is a very fast painting. We did this in record time, because once you get these two lights done, and then over here we got some yellow, just a bright yellow. I'm just going to put that in there. That's all about all that is. I'm just going to, and maybe make it a little bit more wet, more of a tint, so I can get the white of the paper. And then these down here. Now down here, you notice you're just seeing a tip of it, so I raised it up a little bit, and I put the center dark in there, and that was one of the suggestions by one of the students today, and it was a good suggestion, because then you have like the two plants with the dark seeds in there, so that's kind of neat too. And I'm working 11 by 14 because it's the way I work now. I don't work 11 by 15. I always cut off in 1 inch. So now this is perfectly standard frame size. So you can just put it right into a frame. And so we're gonna put a little bit of the darks in here too, because this side is like dark. I added a couple extra, since I made it a little bit higher, I added a couple of the extra petals. And then you just, figure out these are darker in front. Kind of go by what these are, and so you just kind of go in here. I can go right into the darks. Don't worry about the darks. The darks that come over top of that. And I don't do individual petals. I kind of want it to be that beautiful wash that I always talk about, making the washes work for you. Let the watercolor do its work. It's just so, if you're trying to blend and stuff, that's not the way you want to do it. You want it to just go in there and just get soft edges just by itself. Let it get it by itself. It can do it much better than you can do it. Just add water and just watch it do that little soft edges, and it's wonderful that way. If you want to take things out like this, you can make it lighter by taking the pigment out, because it's all about water and the pigment. Now I'm going to get the light green, the greens that'll be in there that I don't have to do later. So I'm going to go in there with some green, add a little bit of light blue, because I don't really have there's lime green right here, a little bit of lime green. And so I'm just going to kind of go in here and get some of this stuff, lime green. And then when I put my darks, this will be, my light green will already be there. So when I put in my other, and again, I'm not very careful with this, because I let the darks create the shapes. I don't need to be careful with it right now, because this is going to be all covered. And I just need to have a little bit of that light that's underneath to give it a nice glow that's light. All right, so that's going to be a glow of light, a light green. And I used leaf green and a little bit of yellow. And anytime I can use it thick in a puddle of water, that's where you get that nice granulation. So you can't get granulation unless you try that. Where you lifted still changed the color for the next layer. Beautiful. Oh, thank you. Like where I lifted also, it kind of went back in there, so it wasn't as light either. But I can get that back by rubbing a little bit, or you can take gouache and make it really thick and do that too. We kind of did that. I did that on this one. I kind of used gouache afterwards to show that you can use gouache. This is all gouache. This is gouache color on top of the watercolor, the transparent watercolor. And so I used that for some of these little light greens, and so I put it in there later with, and I don't find that to be looking like overworked or thick like gouache. It just gives it a really kind of neat look. All right, so there's my lights. Basically, that's all my lights, and so I don't have to go too much more with my lights. And then I'll get the darks and create the shapes of objects, and boy, is it hot in here. So cheers, everybody. Am I sweating like crazy? So cheers, everybody. It's a cheap brand of wine, and that's why my dad loved. I mean, he loved his wine. That's where we're going to be doing a big wine paper tasting for his celebration of life. Let's see. All right, so now when you're doing your darks, I'm going to do my middle tones and darks, but I have to find a trail. I got to find a way. If I started right here, you know, I had to go both ways and really quickly, and I could wet the whole top, but wetting this and trying to go, so what I'm doing is I'm going to start here, work my way around, and wet it as I go along, so that I'm never going to have a spot where I have to come back to, or it's going to dry too fast or something. So I always look for a path around this. Yeah, my hand is sweating in the gloves, definitely. I'm just sweating all over right now. It must be like 100 degrees in here. So you must see, I'm not crying. I'm just very, very, very sweaty. But so we're gonna wet as we go along. I'm not sure if you ever, I think I've talked about that many times, is where you have to have a path. You know, follow a path around that, so you don't have to stop or go back and forth on the painting and stuff. And so we're just gonna start over here. And you don't have to put any certain color down. You can just use anything, really, because I'm just wetting it with the color so I can see where I'm going. I do want this to be maybe darker on this side, and as I go over to there, it's going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to kind of go in here, and really whatever color you want to use. It really, you know, it doesn't matter as long as it's dark. As long as it's dark or darker than what you have here. I mean, it could be very close to this dark, but as long as it's darker than any of the lights, that's what you're looking for. Just get really dark. Now this could maybe even be too dark, but yeah, you just use whatever you want. And I like to put a lot of different colors in there. Here's a little bit green, which I forgot to put leaves there, but I'm just gonna go in. And like I said, go and wet as you go along. Wet it a little bit ahead of yourself. Wet it a little bit higher. And like this is not dry all the way yet, so I'm gonna get some soft edges there, and some of this like what do they call that? Where it's like a little bleed. See how it's bleeding? But that's okay, because I can use some soft edges there too. That I don't mind that. I don't mind having a few, and if you don't want it to bleed right there, just take it up a little bit higher and use a little bit thicker paint. Use a little bit thicker paint if you're gonna let it bleed a little bit, just a little bit. Then it'll look like a soft edge, because the thicker your paint is, the less it will bleed in a wet wash, or even in a damp wash. It won't bleed that far then. But I do want this to float, and so that you get that beautiful look of just the floating pigment and the granulation, because you can't see granulation unless you float it. Granulation happens in the wet water puddle, and it just separates the pigment from, you know, the water, and then it just lays on top of the paper, and so that's how we get all that granulation look. Now this is 300 pound, and I did not put it onto a panel yet, and so it's going to bow a little bit, but nothing to hurt it out that much. So maybe a little bit of purple in here. And you can make it look like there's something, maybe there's like something happening up here this time. Maybe I'll make like little branches or something, or grasses. I can go with green. Go with a little bit of green in here, and then just, you know, make it look like something, what's happening back there, but very, very light. Now see what's happening? It's just bleeding into my petals. And that I don't want, so I'm kind of stalling here. So I'm going to go a little bit higher than where I want it to come down, because I don't want it to go into my petals like this over here. That's a little bit too much. I'm going to go about an eighth of an inch away from the line, and then it'll bleed down a little bit, or I can later on just put it right to it. But I don't want it to bleed in there. I can bleed a little bit right there, but... And again, if you, let's say this is the time also where if I want to do some kind of technique where, well, it's so hot that my glasses keep on going down my face. And so we're going to be, like if you want to put salt in there, or cellophane, or take a paper towel and get a texture and stuff, or spatter it, that's the time to do it now, and like get it done. And as you're going along, get this part done. Don't get all the way over here and still work on this one. No, just get this part done now, and don't worry about it until it's dry. And then if you want to do something else, you can do that, but go on ahead, but do not stop until you get the way you want it. Like I'll put maybe little things in here and just make it nice and thick, and just make things look like they're happening back there. You can even put, let's say I want to put like some orange back here to make it look like there's a leaf or some kind of a sunflower back there too. You know, you can do anything you want, really, as long as it's darker. And anything's gonna be darker than this. If I just use a little bit more, even of the yellow, it's gonna be darker than that. And don't let this part get dry. Just keep on going through. So I'm getting a reflection from the light here, but sorry about that. Nothing I can do is bowing up against it. So if I lay it flat, you wouldn't see that. Maybe over here it's a little bit lighter. Let's make this a little bit lighter on this side this time. And I see I would just take any color over here. It doesn't matter when you use it first and then you put color into it. And so let's put some brighter orange in there, just to kind of like maybe it look like there's some kind of other plant back there, and there could be a little bit dark stem. You can spatter it, but when you spatter it, make sure you get away from. Don't put it on here. Oh, and I did it anyways, which is okay too. You know me, and I love spattering. I love spattering. A little bit thicker here. A little bit of purple. You know, what grows around like sunflowers too, or what does the leaves look like, the big leaves, because there are big leaves in it, so, and there's none here, but there could be a big leaf of like green there too. Maybe I'll take a little bit of that. Maybe I'll do a little green right up here, a little bit darker green. So here, this is pretty dry. See, I got an edge there that's dry, but I'm gonna put water in there. So not, by now it's all dry on this side, so I don't have to worry about it bleeding in now. So I can go right to the line. We're going to take a little bit of blue in there. I kind of like sometimes to put light on top of dark too. Like if you take a light color, like this yellow or even pink, and put it on top of there, you get some really neat looking effects too, because it spreads out away and gives you those little fingers, those little light fingers in your washes. But you need enough water so that it disperses. If you don't have enough water, and that's what some of the beginners have, they don't put enough pigment in there. And it's just amount of pigment, not so much about the darkness of the pigment or the lightness. It's about the amount that you put down. Really put a lot down, because it can't do anything unless it has a lot of pigment, because otherwise it's just water with a little bit of pigment, and that's called a tint. Then you're just tinting the paper. So you need enough pigment so it can do these fun things like bleed in and make those little fingers and separate the two different kind of pigments, because sometimes the pigments separate on themselves because somehow they don't mix together well. So that's kind of a cool thing to do too, like especially with the light and dark colors. Sometimes they don't blend, they don't meld together very well. Now down here I'm going to try to go into a little bit of green, so a little bit more green down here. Like I could scratch in there. I mean, there's so many things you can do in a wash, and that's always up to you what you want the wash to look like at the end. So you just decide on what kind of wash, watercolor wash. And I say that a lot nowadays because it's so much, there's so many ways you can do a wash. And as long as you know if it has to be dark or light, you can make it textury, you can make it slick, you can use an airbrush. I was just showing my class the other day. On Wednesday, I was showing my class how to use an airbrush, how to just get a super, super fine wash over something, and just super, super fine. So watch this. I'm gonna take this pink, and with opera, and maybe a little bit of yellow, and it's gonna give me like a salmon color. Now watch this. This is still wet. I'm just gonna go in here and just kind of let things float in there, make it a little bit lighter, and just make it. You know, it's floating on top of the dark, but it's still wet, so it'll float out and give me all these little. Here's a little bit dry now, so you need a hard edge. This, I love doing this, where you go right into the darks and just kind of make little dots or make little foliage. Over here, we're gonna, like, I have to hurry up and go down this way so I can go this. I went too far in here because I have to get this part done before it dries. So this down here, I'm gonna try to use a little bit more green down here. A little more green, so that you're using, and it could be, probably should be more of a blue green because you're using orange, so go more with a blue green, like a really intense bluish green, and darken it with a little bit of orange to make it brown. You know, you can make it a little brown because these colors blend together then really well. Now, if I wanted this to be soft edge, I would have to wet the surface, or I could do it afterwards, because I'm not, well, I'm going to keep it sharp first, because I can always go back in and soften an edge too. Easier than trying to make it soft and then make it hard again. I'm just going to go in here, get some of these petals, the little petals. And then since I use some light greens in here, how about putting hints of light green in there? Maybe a stem, you know, little stems of things you don't, because it's all weeds back there. It's out of focus, so you don't have to see exactly what it's doing because you want it out of focus. And I know that these were going to be darker. Some of these are going to be darker, but I can keep parts of the light there. And the stem I can keep light until I take it light now, and then I'll go back to put it in front, because really those leaves and stuff are light here. So do that first. That doesn't mean you can't use other colors in this green too. Like here, I'm going to use some red. And just put a little red in there just to kind of make it look like it's way in a distance something. A bit of green again, so I'm using dark blue, trying gold. Any questions? I could put on the air conditioning, but it's kind of loud, and you're going to hear a buzz like boom, boom, boom. And so I don't like that. We don't want to do that. I just got in here not too long because I could have cooled it off, but I just got here a little bit too late. And we got, this is going to be another plant over here. Let's see, this little part right here is dark. There's a little, you know, the leaves are right there off the edge of the sunflower are always kind of sharp. They're like sharp looking, and it kind of goes round and then it kind of opens up, and then you have these little like sharp edges, almost like the petals. It's like the petals are green first, but then they turn to the yellow and orange. So whatever you do, keep some of the light in there, keep some of the light green in there too, because that's the part that's right below here. I can just do that where it's right below. You can negative paint that. You can be a little bit more detailed with this area because this is your center of interest right here. It's your center of interest, so you can look and try to make sure it's a little bit more in detail. Like work the drawing a little bit better there. And as you get away from that area, then you just get dark and soft edged, and so you don't need to be that, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can just be a soft edge and out of focus. And so what I'm gonna do too, I don't think well, we want the stem to go through here. There should be a stem from this one into this area. I want to take a little bit of orange and green, and so that this is not so prominent over here. Because this is the bottom. Do I want my eye to come down here? No, I want my eye to stay up here, so I'm going to really work hard on getting that part looking really good. Alright, so now we've got our big area of medium and dark, right? And so now we're going to go into our smaller dark, which is this, the pods inside, the seed pods. And so we're going to go in there, and the outer edge is going to be hard edge, and so I'm going to take my brush, kind of spread it out and give it a nice texture. See how it's textury, and it's not so wet right now. It's just I'm blotting the top so I can get a nice texture of that. Then I'm going to wet it on the inside. I'm wetting on the inside of that so that will be wet in the wet, but the outer edge shouldn't be, it could be soft edged a little bit, but I kind of keeping that hard edged. Then get these hard edged, especially these should be the hardest edge right here. So that has to be right on your drawing. Wet it, and see I'm wetting it, and then after I wet it, I'm going to apply pigment in there and just let it float. And so I'll take some really bright orange maybe in here and just let it float. Let that pigment do its thing. Give it some pigment and not a tint. And down here it would be the darkest, so dark to light, dark to light. And actually in the picture it's all really dark, but I want to give it a little bit more like an edge that's a little bit lighter. And I'm going to go with like pure purple right down here. Watch this, purple with the orange makes it brown, and so it can be really nice and brown, and it can be a little bit, I can go with a little bit brighter orange on top because it's pigment, and you can see how it's floating. It's floating on top. It's not giving me a tart texture. Texture is very easy to get at the end. You can just go over a soft edge and it'll look fine, a soft edge. So while this is still a little wet, I'm going to take this stem and make it really dark. Well, it's still wet, that way it's a little nice dark stem here. And I'm going to do some dark petals. And I'll do that for here too, but right now I just want to keep this stem a little bit light yet. Let's wet it on the bottom part and leave the top part light, because this is going to have more of a rounded feel. So I'm gonna wet it, but then just only put the dark on the bottom part and let the other part, just let it float over to that part and it's wet. You can help it along with a little bit of pigment of yellow, maybe, just so that you can wet that area. And then when I get over here, when this is dry, I'm going to go back in and do the background darker. So I'm juxtapositioning lights and dark, so I'll make this really dark. And actually, let's do that right now. Let's take a really dark, dark blue, quinacridone gold, make it a dark green, dull it down a little bit with a little bit of orange, and then just get the side of this really dark. And so this is the background, nice and dark. I can do that on this side too a little bit. Push that over here. And just gives it another, dimension. It's dark and it comes down, and a lot of times I do whatever I have to, looking at the picture and thinking, okay, I didn't even know what I wanted to have this light or dark. It should be in your value study. You should know those things first. But I kind of sometimes go with whatever, go with the flow. If it's dark here, make it light. If it's light, make it dark. Or if you don't want it to be out of focus, just wet it all and just let it all bleed together. Because who cares? It's just all. Let it all bleed together, and then you don't have to worry about it because it's out of focus then. And then it doesn't give it any attention that you don't need. You don't need attention down there. Thank you, Mary Beth, for asking everybody to hit the like button. That always helps. Here I'm now doing the dark seed pod, which, like I said, in the picture, this is not there. But I'm just going to put it in because I felt like, it's just another, otherwise it would just be the petals, and it seemed like it was nice. And actually I didn't think about that. It was one of the students that came up with that, and I was like, perfect. I'm borrowing that. So that was perfect choice. And you pull that right into there. You can be out of focus too, like if that seems a little bit too red over here, put maybe a little green in there, just a dark. And then I'm going to take a little bit of orange to blurring this up a little bit, because this is almost a little bit too nice for me. I want it to just bleed in the foreground. I don't need to see this down here so much. I'm going to keep that side light, but this side should be nice and dark and just out of focus. So blend it, give it water, let it bleed together. We don't need to have this part very detailed. It's all about here. This is where you want it. So the only thing left now is to go in here and get the detail. So I end up using my small brush now. And I'll do every petal. I'll go to each petal and see if I want to shadow to each petal. Oh. Cheers, Dad. Here's to you, Dad. And so, let's see. We'll just hit the. We'll hit each one of these. So I'm going to take the same color. Do not change your color that you used in the beginning. This is just orange and yellow, right? So just use it again. Don't try to make it darker. Just use the same color, orange and yellow, and then just go in and then like look for where the shadows are. Like this, there's one petal here that goes all by itself and goes down. I'm just going to take it down there, and then this one has it connected to this one a little bit. Now I didn't go up to the edge, but it still looks fine. See how I'm just gonna get these little lines, little shift in colors and values, and I'm looking at each one. This one is darker than the background, so I'm gonna take this one a little bit darker. And I can also put little lines in there to show like the creases in the petals themselves. This one's light, and so maybe this one can be a little bit darker. Now here I'm gonna rub a little bit because remember it bled in there, so I'm just gonna bleed it back. I'm just gonna take it and take my brush and tickle it and get that back. Same thing with this, look right here. I'm just gonna tickle that area to get rid of that green that's in there. And also later, what I can do also is go in there with a thick amount of white and yellow. And watch this, I'm just gonna go in there and just make it light again. So that's opaque, but it's wet, so it'll look fine. This one here is supposed to be the leaf, and so let's turn that green real quick. And so this is coming out as a leaf. So I'm gonna go dark here, and then maybe go with a little bit of yellow green up here. And again, I can later on also go in with like a leaf green and just make it, you know, make it opaque. So working my way down, yellow is just hitting it yellow twice. This has a bunch of lines going down. And look at it, it kind of goes down in real thin lines, and then I'm going to just take it, make it a little bit thicker. See, just a few little lines. There's lines in there, and you just show each petal then. You don't want to do it in the beginning because that would be like crazy. You'd be doing it in such detail, and so it would take you so long to do that. Here, this part is a little bit darker down here. I'm just going to take it and... Now this was a little bit darker on this edge, remember before I wiped it, but instead of doing that, I'll just make this part darker, and then that'll make that looking like it's in the background. A little bit more orange. Like I said, do not use like purples and stuff in here. It will make your yellow look very dirty, and it will not look like a shadow. It'll look like somebody poured something gross on your flower. And so then this goes like this, hard edge right here. This has a few, look at the little, I'll flick a few lines in here. See, I'll just flick that up. Now all these little petals, there's like edges that are really light, and so I'm just going to go underneath and just kind of get the darks to the edge. So I put the darks over here and let them bleed up on their own with water. You don't have to blend, remember, you don't have to blend watercolor. You let the water do its blending. This petal is the lightest right there, and there's a dark right there. You notice how I'm only using yellow and orange. I am not using other colors because you shouldn't. It just will not look right. It will look dirty. The only other flower I know that's like that is daffodils, like the yellow daffodils. And they just look dirty when you're using not yellow or orange. And even orange sometimes can look too dirty. Going in here. I learned it the hard way too. Sometimes you wonder, how did I learn that? By the hard way. I did a painting and I put purple with the yellow because that's complements, right? It should make it gray and stuff. Yeah, it makes it gray. It makes it look really dirty, and it just makes the yellow look awful. So, you know, you learn by your mistakes. Make your mistakes. I'm happy every time I make a mistake because then I know I've learned something. Because next time I'm not going to do that. And so it's always good to learn. It's good to learn and make mistakes. And there's still was that saying, I heard a saying like about a month ago, and I don't know who said it, and I forgot where I heard it, and I forgot the actual saying, but it was an awesome saying. It was something like, you know, every time you do a mistake, you learn from your mistakes type of thing. I forgot who the person was that said it, but it was just awesome quote. And I was like, oh, I gotta remember that, and I totally forgot it, and I forgot where I heard it, and now I haven't heard it for a while now, so I'm not sure where it came from. I think it was like a TED Talk or something, but it was just super, super great knowing that every time you make a mistake, you get closer and closer to something, you know, to becoming a professional, basically. When I mean, I did thousands of paintings, literally thousands of paintings, and, you know, there's some that turn out really great, but there's a lot of bad ones, or ones that were they're not up to par. And I look back at them now. I go back and look at some of those ones, and at the time I thought they were great. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so good. But look at them now, I'm like, whoa, that wasn't as good as I thought it was. All right, so now these petals, a few little petals here with lines. And also, we were talking about stenciling, and when you're doing stencils, all those old paintings that you made, don't ever throw them away, because you can always work on them, like with stencils, or what I did with this painting. Remember what I did with this painting? I kind of tried that, you know, I tried to do a design on there, and then maybe not worked about, but that's what you do on paintings that you're not quite sure, or if you don't like them, try to fix them with design elements, or try some other things to make them look better. You need to practice. You just need to practice, and practice makes perfect. And that wasn't a saying, by the way. There you go, like that. It's a little bit darker. Now, if I want to make some of these parts darker, I pull it out. I can pull it out. And this is where you should really watch your drawing, like really go in there and try to make your drawing look like what it's supposed to be. You know, like if you can follow your too closely to a T, then that's good. I mean, it's good to do that. And then I put a little bit of shadow across this stem here. This looks like, I'm not sure what this looks like. I think I should have had a big leaf in here of light green, but too late for that. Well, it's not too late. I could always just put a swipe. Let me just show you. So that's pretty much when it comes to the details. I'm going to put it really dark right here. Really dark in here, because this right here has to be the darkest and lightest right here, the most detail. This is my center of interest, so that's where you put all your details. See, I told you this would be a fast painting. And so we're going to go in here. Maybe put a little dark in here too, just to kind of give it a look of something. See, like when a background's like this, where it's kind of just nah, whatever. That's when you can put other like elements in there, make a design out of it, and instead of just keeping it like that, you could put that like design I did before with little triangle shapes or rectangle shapes or whatever, circles. You can do that, you know, that circle of confusion circles in there too. You could do all kinds of stuff to make it look just a little bit more interesting. Making this a little bit more clean. I think I heard the train. There's the train. All right, so let's make this a little bit darker down here. I know it doesn't need to be, but you guys see anything? What did you do on a lemon? What were you talking about? I forget what did you do on a lemon? Now, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to use the opaques. Let me just show you what you can use opaques. Now, this normally could be done like this, and I'd leave it. But if you feel like you need to do more, and if you like that look of opaqueness, and you didn't put, you want some light edges or something. Like let's say I want some of the petals to be really light, and I'm going to use a really opaque, and I can cover that up. Oh, purple? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a, well, first I got to do this first. I just seen this is not dark enough, so I'll take my, because this also got to look textured, because these are the seeds, right? And these are kind of textured here, so it's important to make this look very detailed, this part right here. That's where your eye goes, and I got to keep that nice and detailed. But let's go to our, let me just, since we have time, I'm going to take like a, because I don't have gouache here at the moment, but I do have opaque watercolor by mixing white with it. So I'm going to take a little bit of this leaf green, mix a little bit of white and yellow, and I'll make it thick. And now gouache would be better because it's already the color, and you can it's kind of more concentrated. So, but let's say like I want a little hits of this really opaque look, like it really stands out. So like right here, there's supposed to be a little. See how there's a little dot right there, and you can just do little things to make it highlights, and you know. And I don't think it looks. I don't think it's wrong. I think it just makes it look better. You're enhancing the painting by just putting that little highlights in, or little things. I could do that with the yellow too, like just pure yellow and white to clean up my edges too. And I can do that on the top of the petal. So I'll take pure white, mixing in my white. And then just going to yellow and white. And that's why I always think everybody should have two whites, one for mixing and one for pure white. But like right here, let's say I want to, and this really doesn't have white in this picture, but you can, let's say maybe over here I want it a little bit lighter, or I want this edge to be a little bit lighter. And you can just put little hits of the light in there. Here I can put a little bit of the edging, like the, remember over here I got that too dark, and so I can just put that over. Now I'm not going to get it as light as the paper in yellow, but you know, it's just a way of getting like some texture in there too. A lot of people don't like this. I like using this a lot when it comes to plein air painting because I can just not worry about masking fluid. I just go in there with the whatever color I want. I don't have to think like, oh, I gotta put masking fluid here first and then I'll get back to that. But no, I just put it in afterwards. And I can get texture. I can, correct my mistakes. It's not like correcting your mistakes, but enhancing your area that would look better with a little bit of white or something lighter. Take a little bit more orange in here. And like I said, you could have taken it where you could have stopped. I could have stopped like when I was down before, but I just want to show you that you can also do it this way too. For both the people who are traditionalists and those who want to try making it thick. It's either way. It's not wrong or right or wrong. It's just a different preferences. Preferences, giving yourself some preferences to what you want to do. Okay, let's put a little bit of this lime green on this stem a little bit. See. And I could have done that with the paper, right? I could have done it with the paper, but I didn't. And so now I'm getting it afterwards. It's up to you. You are the artist. You do whatever you want. And I'm not doing a photo. I'm doing a painting. So this is the way I like doing my painting. I think that's it, guys. I can't see anything else unless you see something. All right, let's look at both of these. And so this was the one now. And like I said, I could put some kind of stencil over that, like stencils, and do design up there. And that's that's not a problem. It's actually in my classes that we do that to a flower scene, and it's fun because then you have something a little bit extra. Than it looks more than just a scene of the flower, but it gives a little design to it also. And it could be like maybe on all the paintings you do like a certain kind of technique on something. It could be spattering. It could be those things. It could be whatever you want it to be. All right, so there you have it for today's vertical. And like I said, if you want to do it vertical, it's okay. But then I would put the stem going down this way and put some of the things over here, because then it would look kind of weird if it's just going to the edge. So you'd have to bring down the stem like in the picture, because I think in the picture there's stems going down here. But so if you're doing that, make sure the stems go this way, because right now I'm having going straight down. Up to you. You decide. And thanks for watching, guys. And thanks for the condolences for my dad. And we will see you probably, what is it? Maybe on Sunday. I can see if on Sunday if I can do a plein air. I haven't done one, and I'm going to be going to Grand Marais, and I'm doing a mini workshop up there. And also my Dillman's class up at Dillman's is going to be in the middle of September. If you want to come up to Dillman's and take my watercolor class there, that's still a few spots available. And I'm doing a mini workshop in Grand Marais. I'll be at the thing there. I will be in Hibbing, Minnesota also to do a few little things. And in Hazelhurst, and we're doing 2 days with them. But those are art clubs, and sometimes they're pretty much filled up. And so, but definitely the Dillman's is open for you to sign up there. And if I will be then at the end of September. I will be in Iowa, in Dubuque, Iowa, for the Bluff Strokes competition up there. So I can, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do with all the if I'm going to have some Wednesday or Thursday night things. So or Thursday, yeah, it's like today. I'll let you know in my newsletter. So get my newsletter. All right. So thanks everybody. We'll see you later. Bye bye.